Hello and welcome to the Cat House. This is Mr. MeowsAlot, and this week I read The End of Faith by Sam Harris. Sam Harris is a neuroscientist and philosopher. He went to Stanford University and I believe the University of California. His book, The End of Faith, is a criticism of religion, and his argument is that while Christianity has gone through a reform period, Old Testament to New Testament, Islam has not, and he criticizes modern day liberal moderates for the enabling and accommodation of extremist religious views, saying that all cultures are relevant and we can't judge other people. His book is a criticism of religion on the whole, and in fact the first part of the book talks about the 600 years that Christianity had the Inquisition and burned witches at the stake, and the tortures and the coerced confessions, and how they were corrupt and terrible. But they reformed Old Testament to New Testament, and he claims that Islam has gone through no such process and is still stuck in the Middle Ages and walking around in contemporary times. And that's why it has such opposition to Western cultural values, because it simply has not reformed itself as Western culture has. The book, The End of Faith, derives from a post-Cold War book called The End of History by Francis Fukuyama. The End of History and The Last Man. And in it, Fukuyama is often read to mean that since the conflict between West and East of capitalism and communism had come to an end at the end of the Cold War, that Western ideology and culture could flourish and thrive. That is not how I read Fukuyama. Fukuyama, first and foremost, is an excellent book of philosophy, but it's a warning, and his warning appears to be more relevant today, 30 years later, than it was when it was written in, I think, 1991. His warning is that without opposition, it is possible for Western values to turn on themselves, and for equality to take the place of merit. And I think we are seeing that today with the identity politics and the social justice warrior movement, where the left has become a monster that eats itself alive in its effort to bring a standardization to the culture and erasing merit completely from the map. And I think it's a very dangerous thing. But back to The End of Faith. So we have The End of History. Following that, a response was The Clash of Civilizations by Samuel Huntington, I think only a year or two later. In this, it says it's not the end of Western culture's opposition and conflict. It says that, Samuel Huntington says that the West now has to return to its prior conflict before the Cold War, to its opposition to Islam, because Western culture is a universalist ideology, and so is Islam, and that's why the two cannot coexist. And wasn't he correct? So then we have 9/11, and then we have the problems with ISIS and terrorism throughout the world, and in 2004, The End of Faith by Sam Harris, a full-on criticism that Islam needs to reform, and he argues that moderates are enabling extremist views. He is anti-theist. If you're religious, you're not going to like the book. I am atheist, and I rather enjoy it, and it's extremely well written. Sam Harris is very funny. He's very sarcastic and witty, but at the expense of the faithful. So if you're religious and you don't want to be made fun of, then don't read the book. Because essentially he's looking at the faithful as, you know, superstitious idiots. And, well, as atheist, I see what he means. When you take the literal word of these old texts and expect everyone else to follow them as well, it's just not going to happen, because you know, your paranoia about what happens after you die is not mine. Now, I do have a criticism of the book. I wish it flowed better. You know, even though it's very well written, he's very logical in his arguments, but from chapter to chapter, I just didn't find it flowed very well. And I think I know why. He's trying to hit all the major, you know, hot points, the topics of the debate between religious and irreligious. And, you know, for example, he at one point talks about how, you know, animals do exhibit morality, and, you know, religious faith just ignores that, and, you know, looks at humanity as the only moral equation, and that morality is derived from religion. So he has to hit that hot topic, and then other ones that he has to, you know, on why and why not God exists. So he has to bounce back and forth between some issues and others, and it just doesn't flow very well for his main argument of Islam needing to reform and moderates being the problem. He needs to somehow string that all together into a more coherent narrative. But I really enjoyed the book. I'd read more of him. I really do enjoy watching his interviews and seeing his speeches, his debates. He's very, very well spoken. He's very intelligent, almost mesmerizing, his mellow nature when you see him speak. But yeah, I'd read him again, and I recommend the book. He is part of the Four Horsemen of Bennett, Dawkins, and Hitchens, meaning that he is anti-theist. He promotes it and discusses it at length. I think he's written more books that are anti-religious, and states that we don't need religion in contemporary times. So, if it's not your cup of tea to you know, crap all over religion, probably not the best thing for you to read. But I do recommend everybody to, you know, take a second look. We are in modern times, and, you know, religion is everyone's little folktale. So if it can't take some criticism, maybe it's not as strong as you thought it was. Anyways, until next time, keep reading and take care.